Hello, this is Rob Lindburn. I'm the section lead for industrial process microbiology at Camden BRI. One of our main areas of activity is microbiological challenge testing for process validation. And typically, a lot of the work that we do is in low moisture foods because these are quite dynamic processes. One of the areas that we are asked about a lot by our customers is when should I revalidate a process? What should trigger a revalidation? Should it be on a specific frequency, or should it be in response to a particular event? So in terms of guidance on this area, most of the guidance for this area comes from Codex Alimentarius, who published a guidance on validation of food safety control measures in 2008. And this guidance considers the area of revalidation. So there are 5 main points I want to cover. The first of which is system failure. So if you have a failure in your system, be that a failure in the initial challenge test to achieve your performance criterion, so you're looking for a 5 log reduction and you only achieve 4 in some samples, then obviously there'd be a cause for a root cause analysis initially, and then obviously be the need for revalidation once you'd established what that root cause was. Similarly, if there's a system failure in the sense that verification and monitoring activities indicate that your process is out of control, then this is obviously a trigger for an investigation and potentially would require revalidation of the process once you've established what the issue is. Changes to process itself, point 2, changes to process itself. So if you have to change the equipment or any part of the equipment which may affect its performance, then again, something you need to consider is, do I need to revalidate? Do I need to challenge test again to make sure that this newly configured equipment is correct and is still achieving the performance criteria I'm looking for? Probably the most common area of triggering for revalidation would be this in our experience from our customers. So not just process itself, process settings, but also the kind of the small impacts of multiple changes over a period of time. So quite often our customers will revalidate on a frequency of 3 to 5 years. And this is to take into account small changes to equipment, wear and tear, changes to staff, and changes to the product during that time, all of which may come together to have a larger effect on the actual overall process and whether it remains valid. So this is a kind of due diligence approach, which comes around different small changes to process. The third point would be changes to product. So often for low moisture foods, things like herbs and spices, nuts and seeds potentially, validation is carried out by categorizing products and then selecting worst case examples of each category. And this cuts down not massively on the amount of challenge testing work that's required. Where that approach has been used, the downside of that is if you were to increase your portfolio of products in a given category, you would need to consider whether or not that invalidates the process. So is your new product covered within the initial validation, or does it change what your worst case is? So that's another consideration. The fourth consideration would be changes in the hazard themselves. So this is perhaps a little bit less likely, but certainly if you have an new emerging pathogen, for example, maybe a virus or something like that needs to be considered in the thermal process validation, then that would be a certain trigger for revalidation because you would be considering a completely different organism. Similarly, if there are issues or outbreaks associated with a particular product which indicate that the current log reduction performance target is not correct, then you would need to try and validate to show potentially a larger log reduction in order to achieve a valid process. And finally, the fifth point, in the sort of turbulent political times that we're in at the moment, a lot of people consider different markets. Different markets sometimes have more or less stringent performance criteria. So are you actually applying the criteria of the market you're looking to go into? Often you may be challenged on that, in which case that would trigger a revalidation potentially. And changing requirements in the same category. So traditionally, there hasn't been very much standardization of challenge testing approaches. In more recent years, there's been a lot more activity in that area. So in 2022, there was an ISO guidance published, ISO 20976 Part 2, which covers inactivation challenge testing. So if you've carried out your challenge test a long time ago, then the chances are you may or may not be compliant with that new standard. And if not, then it may be something you need to consider, because your customers may require that you comply with that standard. So those are the kind of main points that we find would trigger revalidation for our customers. If you have any questions, we have a lot of experience in this area, so I'd encourage you to contact us. Thanks very much.